Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming in. And if you want to turn your cameras on and smile with Tracy and I.
We're doing something a little bit different. Instead of giving you a learner survey, we have an activity that we're going to do in a minute. And so we'll just let you look at some of the questions, right, Ari, that's going to be with
Yeah,
that
so
activity.
exactly. Please think about when you're in a group setting, what works for you, what helps you, whether in this digital platform that we're on, or whether we are in person and we're having conversations, what works for you, what helps you grow and learn, what distracts you, what makes it hard for you. How can we support others? So then also think about, so what do you need? And then what can you do to help others? So be ready to respond to those prompts. This is from page 55 in the book. Welcome for everyone as we're coming in on this Thursday afternoon. We're starting to get people. I'm Ari Werder. I'm a middle school and high school teacher this year. And I get to be a UDL building lead at the elementary school that I'm working in as well. So yeah, here I am.
Katie Dorr is also our partner in crime. She's from the district just south of us in Mount Vernon. She is a technology integration specialist and also the UDL lead in her district. And she has worked with Ari and I for quite a few years. So she's an amazing resource for us. And I'm Tracy Dabbs with the Burlington Edison School District. I get to work with Ari and I see some of our Burlington people. Shout out Caramella. And I am the coordinator of technology and innovation for Burlington Edison, and I also get the opportunity to support the district with UDL. So exciting opportunities with that.
All right. So our feedback was last time that we met our goal 100%. It doesn't happen that often, but that's pretty exciting. Oh, here comes Katie too. She's coming in. So 100% of our time. So what we were kind of came up as keeps was choices for learning and reflection time. So having some different ways to do that people appreciated it. Change. Breaking into choice groups to facilitate needs. So based on what you guys gave us, we had a pretty good split. About a third per group of some people wanted to do kind of that first level of wrapping up. Another group wanted to kind of get into discussion and reflect on each chapter and talk more. And then there's some other that really wanted to go out and try it and put it into practice. So pretty even split. So we're going to divide up into that today.
So we're trying this out. We've not done a book study like this before. So you're going to have to give us feedback and help us out with this and see how we can really make sure this works for you. Our goals for our book study, just like we shared with you in the last sessions, we are looking at ways to reimagine our classroom workflows with UDL and blended learning and give you a chance to reflect and collaborate with your peers around current practices and next steps for yourself in your role. And Ari, was I going to do this one and you guys were going to help me? Is that what we decided?
Because you were going to explain how to use this for
us.
Oh,
brilliant.
So, these are the questions we brought in when we first thought about, but now we're going to use a really cool tool that Tracy put together for us to kind of start creating some norms for how we're going to interact with each other today.
Now, Google, of course, has gotten rid of one of my favorite Google tools, which is called Jamboard, and it made me super sad, but I was sad for a short time and then regrouped to try to find a solution. And so what this is just a Google drawing that is pretending to be a Jamboard slide. So what I'm going to do is share the link with you, and everyone has editing access with this.
I just threw it in.
Oh, did you put it in for me too, Ari? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So you should be able to come in and with the questions that we shared with you, which Ari, you want to read the questions for us real quick?
Yeah, what works for you? So when you're thinking about when you collaborate and when you're in a group, what helps you? And then what might distract you? What's going to be something that you kind of wish people didn't do? And then how can you support others? What are some things you know that you can do for yourself and for others?
So what we want you to do in considering those questions is interact with this collaboration space, and you just get to grab a Post-it, drag it into, if you're going to be telling us something that supports you, you put it in the Go section. And when you right click it on it or two-finger tap, if you're on a Chromebook, you can actually edit the text and then share with us the wonderful idea that you have. And then, of course, if it is a thing that doesn't support you, you drag that Post-it over into the no fly, the big stop. And if you see someone else that has one that you were going to put that, don't put a repeat, just go ahead and put a star on theirs. Okay, so we're going to give you a few minutes and let you go ahead.
1 minute. We're giving you 1 minute.
What we're going to give you like a minute and a half.
Okay.
To interact with the board And we're going to revisit this as we go. You might see it in your group today. You might see it later. So we'll try to come back to this strategy. And this is one of the strategies from the book that we kind of morphed to make our own. All right. So I'm seeing a couple. I'm willing to try and be patient with others who are learning. People talking during a presentation. Oh, I'm seeing extra stars on that one. It's pretty prevalent in an adult learning space, right? So making that a norm and talking to people about how that really messes you up. Oh, pencil tapping. It's a good one. I'm saying it's a good one. Stick to topic.
That's the purpose of a fidget, right? So that they don't fidget with their pencil.
We have a director that's a toe tapper or a foot tapper, and then we have to remind him a lot to stop.
Like the feeling like my feelings and thoughts matter. Yeah, definitely makes you more interested in participating. Awesome. We're going to leave that there. If there's some other stuff that comes up, we're going to revisit that. But we wanted to kind of just take a moment to think about what is working for you, what you can do to help others. So sometimes for me, I am a talker, so I can help others by making sure I let several people speak before I do, or things like that as well that I notice about my personality.
And you might want to keep that tab open. And if something comes up for you while you're in one of your sessions, add it, please. And we will come back to this and look at it because we're trying something a little different with these, with the explorations, where we're going to need to kind of really think about how we're supporting each other as we go through some of these investigation choices that we have. So consider leaving that tab open and see if you have anything to add. Here is where we are going to break up into the group that you chose last session. Now, I know I said, once you pick your group, you're in it forever, but I was reminded that's probably not very inclusive.
You were outruled. You were outruled.
It's all good. I was more kidding, but not really. But yes, so now what you're going to get to do is go into your group, and this might be a group you pick just for this session, and the next time you pick another one, it's okay. But for the rest of our sessions, we're going to run things through in different entry points for you. So group 1 and 2 are going to stay in the main room to start. And those are the groups that picked wrap up for the book or reflect and discuss. So you're going to stay in the main room. Ari and Katie are going to walk you through some pieces, and then you're going to split up and come back together and split up. But that's how that group is going to go. And then group 3 is the group that said they wanted to actually start with design and put some of these things into practice and talk more and collaborate. That's going to be group 3. And you're going to actually come into a breakout with me that is actually called Into Action. So we have a group that's going to be a breakout group that's actually called Into Action.
There's a link of videos that go along with each of the different shifts that go within this book study. So for each one, for shift 1, 2, and 3, we pulled out, they're just 3 to 4 minute quick videos of the 2 authors talking about those shifts. So we're going to watch a quick video of each of those. And then those of you who are doing the discussion reflection will hop in with Ari. Those of you who are doing more of the review will stay with me, and we'll go into more of the specific strategies regarding that shift as we move forward.
Here we go.
So workflow number 1, we talk about shifting from transfer of information to student discovery. And Kat, I have to tell you, when I was little, I wanted to be a teacher, and I would line up all my dolls and all my stuffed animals and basically put on a performance. And, obviously they didn't respond because they're just inanimate stuffed objects. But I felt yes, this is what teachers do. We stand up and we put on a show, and I'll explain everything. And they just kind of sat with their glass, dumb eyes staring at me. And, it worked. But then when I became a teacher, I kind of replicated that doll model where I'm let me tell you everything I know. And, that might work okay for your mythical average learner who's fairly compliant. It doesn't mean they're going to love it, but it's okay, I can sit here like your cute little stuffed animals and, follow along. And what I realized is that as my classroom became more inclusive and more diverse, it didn't work. So I spent all of this time basically putting on these performances. We used to call it Sage on the Stage. And I got very little yield from student learning. And we had this idea of having students be more centered on the learning, but then there's questions about how on earth do you do that?
Right. And the chapter is not to say that teachers will never stand up and explain things. I mean, I guess my preference would be like, if you're going to say it the same way to everybody, like make a video, let kids pace through it. Because I know when I stood up in front of the class and talked, I was heckled. It was like, slow down, Miss Tucker, you're going too fast. Or, oh my gosh, I need to catch up on my notes. And so there will be moments where you might make an instructional video, or you might run small group instruction as part of a station rotation. But we also don't give students opportunities to wrestle with information and discover for themselves and work with their peers to unpack complex texts and navigate video content and figure out what are we learning from this information. And so in this chapter, we provide concrete strategies like utilizing choice boards, reciprocal teaching, jigsaws, making bite-sized instruction to try to think about where are those moments when we can allow students to engage in that work of making meaning, engaging with new information, wrestling with ideas, because they're capable, and we don't want to steal all the aha moments at the front of the room.
And also, we're not stealing from everyone, right? Because we're just, again, you know, we're only going to take small groups, just maybe the dolls or maybe the stuffed bears, because like what they need based on data might be different. But we tried to be really concrete to provide strategies that you could use right away to begin to shift that workflow.
So our goal for the session today is we are just going to be reviewing the resources and the strategies in shifts 1 through 3. There's a lot of information to cover, so I do apologize if we are going to be, we may go through some a little bit quickly at times, but I encourage you to, as we go through the book, I don't know about you, mine looks like this. I've got lots of different bookmarks and things that I want to come back to as well, so feel free to take notes on that as we go. So before we go ahead and get started, just to get to know each other and who's in the room a little bit, if we could just take a quick second to let us know your name, your favorite Halloween candy or treat, because we still probably have a lot of those left over in our house, and where are you in the UDL journey? And I will go ahead and start since I missed the very beginning. I'm Katie Dorr. I'm a technology integration specialist with Mount Vernon School District. I would have to say my favorite Halloween candy is probably 100 Grand, because it has something to do with that crispy crunch as well as the caramel in there. And in terms of my UDL journey, I am the UDL lead for our district, but I still feel like I have a ton of things to learn and do and experiment with. And so I am a work in progress. All right. So let's go ahead. Is there anyone who wants to jump in next, or I can call on you too? It's up to you.
I'm Danielle. My favorite Halloween candy. Oh, and I'm an OT. My favorite Halloween candy is Almond Joy. And my district is just starting their like kind of focus on UDL. A lot of our professional development this year is focused around that. So I'm just trying to learn as much as I can to help out.
Welcome, Danielle.
Thank you.
I can go. My name is Missy Rep, and I'm at the Endicott School District. I am the special education teacher and director. So I support grades preschool through 8th grade. And let's see, my favorite Halloween candy or treat. I love like the Rice Krispie treats that have like chocolate over the top, but it's like a peanut butter. I don't know. There's this lady at our work that makes them. They're like my favorite. She made them for my birthday this year too. So it's a nice surprise. My UDL journey, I've done a couple book studies. We're not really, at our district, we're not really discussing UDL or moving forward, but I feel like if I can have knowledge, then when our teachers get to that place, then I can help support that and then start trying some different pieces with the students that I get to work with as well. Or if I'm co-teaching with a teacher, try to bring some of that in slowly as well.
So collaboration norms, we were going to bring this back. This group looks a little bit different, but I wanted to share the strategy with you as something that you could definitely use within your classroom of kids. As we begin turning over some of that power to our student-led groups, creating norms. Well, sometimes in professional settings, it can seem a little mundane. It is very important for fully highly functioning groups. So we did that collaboration norms in the beginning of asking the questions of what works for you, what distracts you, and then what can we do to help support you to collaborate. And it's a great way for you to work with that and do some brainstorming with students as well. And then for this group, because this group, and we can revisit this next time when we have a little bit more time, this link is available for you. And I encourage you that when you're working with kids and you're looking to turn over some of that ownership for them to take for their learning, as they're working together in groups, it's important for all individual members to have some norms that they abide by. And so this right here is just a draft for you. And you can feel free to do it, to collectively as a group, and this was on page 55, what are some things as a group that they will do? And what are some things as a group that we think we should probably avoid together? So if I was to look back at our Google Drawing, maybe we're going to avoid some pencil tapping. It's different when we're on Zoom and we can mute, but you can talk about some of the specific things that all of the group and all of the class will agree to. And I know I did this with I taught middle school for 12 years, and I did this with my students every year, and then they had to sign it every year. And I placed it on the wall right by the door. And more often than that when they were working together, when I would talk to a student, I'd say, "Hey, Jace, do you remember?" And I'd just point, and he'd be like, "Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah, I remember that I said that I would do that." So it's important for them to feel, and it's important that we make our students feel that they're part of that process as well. I wanted to remind you, we're going to be looking at, for chapters 1 through 3, we're going to be looking at a variety of different templates and strategies that Katie introduces here. So I will drop this link in the chat for you as well. So please feel free to follow along. I have made copies for you that you can keep, and then you can always come back and reference these at any time as well. Are we good?
Yep.
Awesome. Everybody's out?
Yep, they're gone.
All right, they're gone.
Do you
So
need anything?
I'm all good. So I've got the big scary school by myself and the
Yeah,
custodian.
The custodian's running around, I think, but.
Okay, thank you.
You want me to hang around or
Nope,
are you?
it's all good. I'll be here till
Okay.
5:15.
Okay,
Thanks so much.
yeah.
I appreciate that. All right. So that is there for you to look at. So shift number 1 was all about transferring information from student discovery. So I don't know about you, when I first started teaching, I was a very traditional teacher. I stood in front of the class. I did a lot of talking. I like to impart my knowledge on my students. And really, and as Katie had said in her video, didn't always get a big bang for my buck, and depending on where students were at and what their learning style was not always the best presentation for them to get some of that knowledge. So how do we start turning over some of that control? So strategy number 1 that they refer to in their book, and this is a live link for you here if you'd like to, you can click on it and it will open up a copy for you. Sorry, I'll get you back here. Really aligns with the UDL principles. So the UDL principles are looking at number 1, multiple means of engagement, multiple means of representation. So how are students going to be learning? How can we vary our different learning styles? And then multiple means of expression of how can students then express what they know? How can they share? And so she created a choice board, which aligns with the foundation or the frameworks with UDL. So how do students acquire information? How can they make meaning of that information? And then what are the different ways in that they're going to share their learning? So students then have a variety, so they could possibly read an article, watch a video, and listen to a podcast to learn that new information. Now, the one thing that I do hear when we talk about choice boards quite a bit is the teachers or some of my teachers had said, well, what if they always choose the easy one? And Katie's response to that is there shouldn't be an easy one. As long as you are sure what your firm goal is and what you want them to know, regardless if they read the article, watch the video, or listen to the podcast, if they understand and they're meeting that firm goal, that's okay. They can choose, and there's multiple different ways for them to get there. There's also multiple different ways for them to make meaning of it, whether they have a graphic organizer, they're talking about it with their peers, or they're writing about it, as well as presenting their information and new knowledge. Any questions on that? Strategy number 2 is leveraging reciprocal teaching and jigsaw activities. Some of these ones scared me to death when I was teaching because I was a little afraid to let go of that control within my classroom. And when I put them in groups, I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen. So some of the things, and so this is students learning from each other. And so one of the first things that they address is called reciprocal teaching. And in reciprocal teaching, every student gets a role and they're assigned that role. So one of the roles that they say is the predictor. So as they go through and work through the activity, they need to make a prediction of what they're reading. One is the summarizer, one is the questioner, and what is the clarifier. So when I look at these reciprocal teaching, I look at the different roles that students are there for. Could we just put students in groups and have them do this? I don't know if my kids could, to be honest. When, when we talk about different roles and when we talk about who's going to be doing what, we need to be aware of who's in our classroom and do they understand the routines and what does it mean to be the summarizer? What does it mean to be that questioner? How could this kind of reciprocal teaching, how could this be used? And this is the question, feel free to jot in the chat or just go ahead and unmute yourself. There's only a couple of us. How could this be used to support diverse groups?
It would give everybody a chance to learn something the way they want to learn it.
You think you could also partner kids up?
Yeah.
And maybe partner kids up, and instead of having one person responsible for one thing, maybe you have two people who are responsible, which kind of takes a little bit of that burden off as well.
Right. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. And then how can teachers support students working together? And we're going to talk about this a little bit more further in the presentation. But just because we're turning over some of the teaching and learning and putting the power in the hands of our students, does that mean there aren't times when it's appropriate when we see things going wrong? Because you can see things and you're like, oh, we are way off path. It's okay to use that as a small group mini lesson to say, let's come back and talk about what does it really mean to be a summarizer, and to pull those one or two students and re-clarify and reteach and readjust. So while we're turning over the learning to the responsibility of the students, it's okay to stop, check in, and redirect when necessary. Strategy number 3, and this goes along with what we were just talking about, was to make that direct instruction differentiated and bite-sized. So the quote that I pulled out, and it was on page 43, we have discussed the importance of moving away from the teacher as the only source of knowledge, but that is not to say that teachers cannot provide targeted instruction to learners. So I added this in here. So first, it was a small group instruction mini lesson plan template. And even when we are, and so this one as well as the next slide goes together. So you can look at either one of those. Those are large group and small group instruction planning templates. Even when we are grouping students into small groups, you may decide that you want to put those small groups of students who have similar needs. And maybe you want to work in a rotation model where you're doing small group instruction as kids are working together. Maybe you want to have a very diverse group of students where you have some really high kids and some kids who struggle, and maybe they can partner and learn together and help each other along the way. But as you start moving into working with groups and working with small groups and working together, it's really important that you're very active and intentional as the teacher and as you're putting your groups together. And once again, knowing what that firm goal is. What is that learning objective that you want students to walk away from at the end of the day? My question before, and the other group should be coming back here shortly, is there a method that you have tried or maybe would like to try to turn over some of that power of learning, teaching and learning in your classroom to students?
I'd like to try the choice board. I think that sounds like fun.
Mm-hmm. Moving to that one. And I think it allows students to play on their strengths. And what they feel that they're ready for at the time. And, to go back with what Katie said, well, there shouldn't be an easy answer, or there shouldn't be an easy choice. If you find that students have a tendency to lean one side or the other each time, so every time I'm going to watch a video, every time I'm going to participate, you'll start to see those patterns and maybe encourage them to go out of their comfort zone and try something different. But choice boards are great.
We were just talking about those too, Katie.
You guys are back.
Yeah, we're back. Are we ready to watch the next video?
We are. It was quick and we're ready.
I know, we barely got to it. We were just getting to know each other. So are you showing that video? Perfect. You do it.
I got it.
Okay.
Maybe.
You had it.
Good. I'm getting there today, Ari. Thank you for your patience.
Well, our group totally understands because we were all sharing that it's been a crazy week and are feeling a little all over the place. So we're right there with you.
Second workflow is focused on transitioning from whole group teacher facilitated discussion to small group student led discussions. And I can share, I remember coming in as a young teacher wanting to have a lot of vibrant discussions with my students. Some of my favorite college classes were really those small group seminar classes where we spent a lot of time discussing texts and issues and topics. And then I entered the classroom and I would try to lead a discussion and it was infuriating. It was so frustrating. It was just like the same kids, my discussion dominators, talked every time. And then the rest of the class just looked like they wanted to disappear. And when I think back on those whole group discussions, it was a lot of energy from me feeling like trying to pull kids in and connect ideas and help to build up some of their initial concepts into kind of more complete ideas. And really, I realized I was doing all of the work or most of the work in those discussions. And actually, I was doing the most talking because after a student would share an idea, I felt like I had to either affirm it, give, kind of add on to it or correct a concept that might be a little off the mark. And so I was the one who was actually dominating the discussion. And as I said, it wasn't super rewarding because it wasn't an equitable discussion. Not everybody had an opportunity to have their voice heard. And when I think about it now, there's so many barriers to a real-time, rapid-fire whole group discussion, right? Some kids need more time to process. Some kids might deal with social anxiety. And so I wasn't setting my class up for success and I was exhausted.
I always think about it as like a game of like ping pong because it was like I was on one side of the table and like 35 of them were on the other side because no matter what anyone said, it kind of had to come back to me.
Yep.
So it would be like someone would say something, then I'd be like, oh, Callan, what do you think about what she said? And it was always like boom, 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 boom. And, so how do we shift that to having students have these discussions? The first thing is about co-creating norms with them. And we give lots of examples about how to do that. So they can decide what is a meaningful discussion for them. Providing a lot of scaffold. So, protocols potentially for different types of discussions, things like sentence stems, maybe even role playing effective and ineffective discussions to make sure that students are prepared for that work. Giving them lots of options and choices for how they have those discussions. For example, it could be done online, it could be done and having a conversation together, and it could be a mix of both of those things. And it's also incredibly important that every time we have a discussion, we help students to self-reflect on the effectiveness of that discussion in changing the way that they think and changing the way that they learn. So this chapter is full of these different ideas and concrete strategies to help students to have these discussions. So you can go and observe and listen because people who do the most talking often are doing a lot of the thinking, and we need to allow our students to do that for themselves.
All right.
All right.
Hopping back into our groups. Well, yeah. My team, you guys know how to get back in your breakout room? I'm going to try it. I'm going.
We're going to
No,
see you at
Clara.
8, Ari?
Pardon me?
See you in 8
Yep.
again? All right.
Well, maybe. Probably less. Okay.
Okay, we'll see you soon.
Second workflow is focused on transitioning from
Know about you. I felt a lot of similarities with some of the stories that they shared, in that I felt when I taught language arts and social studies, and particularly with social studies, I love to have discussions and a discussion-based class. But I always felt that students were discussing, it was the same 2 or 3 kids who were usually doing the talking, and they were always looking for me for feedback. They weren't looking at each other. They weren't necessarily discussing deepening ideas together, but they were looking, and even though they had some super awesome, excellent ideas, they'd look at me with that and they'd give me that like tail end of their voice where it's like a question, like, am I right? Because this is what I think, am I right? Wanting to get that instant feedback. So there was a lot of work on the teacher when it came to facilitating some of those classroom discussions. Like she referred to, it is very important that we have that co-creation of norms. And I really wanted to look at this piece because I think this piece is hard. And it says that when we shift towards student discussions, we're supporting the development of expert learners, as well as critical social emotional learning skills such as self-awareness, empathy, perspective taking, and responsible decision-making. Those are big words, particularly for some of our little ones. But it's important that when we create those norms and we talk about letting other people talk, and when we talk about listening when others are speaking, we're working on building those social emotional skills for them to be able to interact with one another in some of those groups. So the one document, and I really liked, and this was one thing that I didn't do, I wish that I would have, but I didn't do enough of as a teacher. I apologize, my screen is taking a minute, is letting kids prepare. More often than not, we'd say, okay, today we're going to be studying this. We'd watch a quick video, we'd read an article together, and when we'd say, okay, go talk. Now you're in your groups, go talk. But little did we ever give them time to really think about, what is it that I have to say? What do I think personally about what I just read, rather than being put into a group and automatically thinking, oh, well, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I'm just going to agree with that and go along with that because that sounds good. But I didn't even have a chance to formulate my own type of thinking. And so I think it's really important that these kind of pre-discussions, time for student reflection, as well as time for students to be thinking about, how are they going to approach, what is the discussion going to look like, and what are some of their ideas? So I think giving them some of that reflection time, something I didn't do enough as a teacher, but I think particularly for a lot of our students who are not verbal processors, they need that time to sit back and reflect on what they're learning before they can contribute. Good. The second one, strategy number 2, was called Scaffold for the Win. And I am a huge proponent of sentence stems. And one of the reasons that I'm such a huge proponent of sentence stems, and I come back. It wasn't until I really got to my district where I'm at right now. And right now we're sitting at about 20, I believe we're at about 28, 29% multilingual students. So many of our students come from us not speaking fluent English. And so when we work with our teachers, sentence stems can really help build, sentence stems and visuals can really help build and help a lot of our multilingual learners or students who just struggle to verbalize what they're thinking, can help them create and contribute to a discussion because they have a place to start. So I like to have sentence stems in a great big old poster posted around the room. So as they're in their discussions, if they get stuck and it's their turn, they always have a way or something to look back to and a way to start. So I highly encourage you, sentence frames and sentence stems should be posted and visible and for reference for student discussions, I believe, at all times. It's also a great way if you have you're focusing on specific content. If you're in math or in science, you're focusing on specific content, language, and vocabulary. Include those content-specific vocabulary words in your sentence stems, because the more it's used, the easier it is for them to start transferring it and using it themselves. So sentence stems, I'm a huge fan, really helps a lot of our students who may, and even some of our students who are pretty vocal, but may just get stuck and they freeze and run out of words to give them a place to start from. The next one that they had presented, it was also in Scaffolds for the Win, was a discussion techniques choice board. And my apologies, I didn't link that one, but it is linked in the other link that I had given you. And it gives students different choices. So as they go into their groups, it gives them different choices to either choose. Are they going to decide that they're going to have a team roles? They're going to assign team roles and have their discussion that way. Are they going to have a fishbowl discussion where team 1 and team 2 split into different places where team 1 listens, team 1 discusses while team 2 listens, and then team 2 paraphrases and they switch places? Or are they going to have some kind of graffiti time? And you see this a lot in different, you can see this a lot in different classrooms where they put poster paper with different questions and different question types around the room. And students have an opportunity to go and either draw the answers to their questions, write responses to their questions, or talk to each other, or put stars next to some things that they may agree with or disagree with at the time. So some things to consider prior to using, I saw this and I think it's fantastic. But some things that I was thinking to consider was, have students had experience with each type of group discussion? If I just gave this to a group of students, would they know what a functioning fishbowl would look like? Probably not. Would they know what an official, if we hadn't done and modeled how group roles work and how to assign group roles, would they be able to do that on their own? Probably not. So really thinking about how can you model and explicitly model for students what each of these different types of techniques look like. And I really like the idea that Katie had as well, is sometimes students really like to see what it doesn't look like. And so I remember when I had a couple other teachers on my planning period, we did some Socratic seminars. So I brought in a couple other teachers to show my kids, what does a non-functional group look like? And the kids got a kick out of it. They thought it was hysterical because the teachers are misbehaving and they're interrupting each other and talking over each other. And it's really easy for students to point out when other people are doing things wrong. So it's nice for them to see that model, and hopefully, so then when it comes time and I'm like, hey, do you remember when we saw that earlier? And they're like, oh, okay, now I'm the one doing that. Okay, I need to make sure that I'm not doing that. So making sure that students have had experience before they can make some of these choices. And then, excuse me, how teachers can work together. This link at the bottom 2 is great for you if you have, these are resources from academic conversations and groups. This gives you a variety of different techniques and resources that you can feel free to explore as well. And the last thing that she talks about, and one other item that I wish I would have done better as I was in the classroom, was that self-assessment piece. And that self-awareness and self-assessment is so important as students are starting to participate, because participating in discussions and sharing their ideas, for some kids, is a pretty scary thing. And it's definitely a learning curve for students as they are working through and as they are getting older. So when you look at the self-assessment rubric, the one on the left is more of a narrative where they can look, are they beginning, developing, proficient, or at mastery in terms of their discussion skills? Okay. And the other is a self-assessment of participation in a small group. And then that's another choice board where they can do a self-assessment in their own way. I really encourage you, particularly as you start using some of these techniques, that as students are turning in some of these things, you have certain students who will rate themselves really high when maybe they weren't, and some students who are going to rate themselves really low when maybe they don't deserve it either. And so those are great times for you guys to come together and have those in-person discussions. I think we've got people coming back.
I think it's bringing Tracy back too.
It is.
So we are not going to be watching that third video.
Or get to our third shift.
Correct.
Yes. But for my group, I'm really going to encourage you. This is the chapter I spent the most time with. Ari and I had a great conversation about it today, talking about reading. Reading for Connections. Such an awesome chapter, so many applications to very different content areas all across the board. I apologize we didn't get to it, but it is a wonderful chapter. Please get some time to look at the slides and dive into some of those resources.
And I think actually would be a great time, Tracy. We haven't done this yet, but before we leave, we need to make sure we dump the website on there. So just so you know, guys, on the website, the intro slides will be there. The slides from Katie's session, from mine, and from Tracy's are all there. So those, I know, just in your spare time, because you guys all have tons of it. But it is also for notes and things to come back to. You can look at any of those pieces. So Katie's got lots of really great connections to different things you might want to do if you're trying a strategy. So like Tracy's group might want to go back and check out what Katie put together, because there's a lot of additional supports added to that. And then in my session, I have a lot connected with academic conversations, a lot on chapter 2.
So I just put the link to the site in there so you guys can take a look. But I
Grab
think
it, bookmark it.
Oh, I think I actually gave it to like the top of the page though. Hold on, let me give it to the right. Because we have all of our resources in there. I'll make sure the link to this actual book study. It's in the menu, but let me give you the actual page.
I've had this page bookmarked on my stuff since the first book study I did with you guys, and I still go back to it to look for stuff sometimes. So
we appreciate that, because we do put a lot of extra time into making sure that we have stuff for you. So I'm glad that at least someone's getting to use it.
For part of my master's degree, I had to create a Google website to put out all my information for my master's research, and it's a bit of work.
Yes, it is. It is definitely a bit of work.
The more you do it, the faster it gets, though. Finding the content then becomes the hardest part.
Then it's maintaining your content for sure.
All right. We only have a few minutes left, but we wanted to come back as a whole group because we were all doing some different learning. Tracy, did you want to put your slides back up for the closing? You're amazing. Thank you.
We'll skip to our Did we have time for a quick share out?
I would love to. I would love to take a minute for everyone just to reflect, like, what's something that was good about today for you? What's a takeaway? Like, hopefully everyone got at least one thing or one thing that felt good. So we can either turn our mics on and just share it, or we can throw it in the Padlet.
Did we get the Padlet link out there?
Yep, it's right on. We haven't sent it to them, but it's right there. It's on that one. I can find it and put it in there. Nope, that's not the right one. That's the right one.
There we go.
Nope, you just put on there. Great. So if you guys want to just quickly give us, this is a feedback, but it's also for you guys to share with each other on that Padlet. Tracy, you had it open. That's perfect. The questions are on there. What's something you learned today or something that you're wondering? So just push that plus underneath session number 3. What did you learn? What do you wonder? What do we wonder? You can put a meme in there. You can put a voice recording. You can type something. Just taking a moment to reflect on something that you'll take away, something someone else said, something that resonated, a page number that's important to you.
And Julie, if in chat, if you can tell me, because we got cut off in our conversation, let me know what you're going to try next week so I can write that down. Send that to me in chat.
And Tracy, if you push refresh, hopefully we'll see there's some typing happening. And don't forget, guys, if you log into it, then you can get back to this anytime. hopefully people can get to it.
I see we have one in the takeaway, teaching different discussion groups. And I know that's a skill, and being able to lead different discussion groups. And I was telling my group, I was a middle school teacher, so I was always a little nervous because I never knew it was going to happen. But once you have some of those routines and things into practice, and students get time to practice with it, they can really come up with some amazing things. And a to-do for the sentence frames, such a powerful learning tool for all learners in the classroom to have those up for discussion so everybody has a point of reference. Thank you for sharing that too.
If anyone wants to turn their mic on and they would prefer to share verbally, I would love to hear it as well.
Making time to get all students to participate, that's huge.
Yeah, and I think in my group, we had a lot of discussion, and I think it's one that comes up too, when we have really small groups, meaning like one teacher one-on-one time too. How do we transfer that learning and speaking to the student? So we have a lot that are really saying that they'd like to explore some more ideas. So if people are coming back, or in Tracy's group, if people are exploring ways to do that, to get small groups to, or individuals one-on-one stuff, people are looking for connections there. All right, Tracy, let's give us what's next. Let people think about what they want to do next time.
All right, so what's next? Again, we're going to have our choice groups again. And Julie, I know it was just the two of us, but I know of two people that are going to join us next time. So thanks for putting your stuff down. I'm writing down what you shared in there. That was awesome. So Julie has been with us in our sessions, Katie and Ari, since we started with SETC. And oh my gosh, I am so hugely inspired with the craziness she is doing with 7th through 9th grade. And I can't wait for the next session to hear the next one. But yeah, I'm just writing down stuff that I'm going to share with other people. I was getting all my support in there. It was awesome.
That's the point, right? That we can all help each other out with ideas.
And so if you're picking groups 1 and 2, your shift focus will be 4 through 6. And then in group 3, like what you might see in the oh, it's a direct message to me. Never mind, you guys don't get to see it. And for the other group, whatever we talked about for your shift, you're going to actually try it out so we can see how it went, what we could modify. Is it that you want to stick with that shift and try it again?
And even if you're not on group 3, you can still say, I really like something from that I've looked at, and you can do one too.
Yes. And our next session is November 21st. Is that right, everybody? Did I get that correct date in there?
Yes,
that is correct.
Perfect. And
all right, we are 1 minute away.
I'm grabbing our feedback out, and I apologize, but not really that I'm keeping this in edit mode, but it lets me grab all of our links out so that I can throw them.
We have a dynamic group, Tracy, that is willing to hang with
everybody is
us.
just totally fine. But here's our feedback link. And if you've been in any session with us for any amount of time, you know how feedback is so super important for us. And hey, I'm not a person that does vulnerability very well. If anybody knows me, I'm just not. But we tried something really kind of out of the box this time with breaking this up. And we were kind of pulling our hair out, wondering if this was going to be a good fit. So you're not going to hurt our feelings. I don't have them anymore. But
that's not true.
Please let us know. And the thing that's nice though, if you give feedback enough, it really doesn't become as personal. I remember my first few, I was just like, oh, they're not going to like me. But now it's like, hey, I just need help with design, right?
But you have feelings, but we can separate the feelings from
Yeah.
what we're providing, knowing that we are trying to do our best for you. So
Yeah, so
I
please
just
let
met
us
you are a
know.
heartfelt, loving person.
Yes. Oh, it's so sweet. But please let us know, because these sessions really are for you. So let us know what worked, what could be changed. And we'll get together in our planning session and see what we can do to support you. And I thank you so much. It was such a thrill to see everybody tonight. And Julie, I cannot tell you how inspired I am after getting to chat with you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I wish I could come to Mossy Rock tomorrow and sit with you and your students and watch this, but I know you're going to tell me all about it.
Well,
I wish you guys could come to Mossy Rock and do training for us, but you know,
be careful what you wish for. We might just show up one day. I don't know about training, but we might just show up.
that would be awesome.
I also want to thank my group, because I had people that joined a discussion group who talked about that actually discussing is something that makes them a little uncomfortable. So I think also, not only did we do something that was a little uncomfortable, I think that people in their groups are pushing themselves into an area in which they want to grow. So I want to give a shout out to everyone, and even those that stayed and knew that they needed to learn and get more examples with Katie. I feel like I just want to shout out for you guys on Thursday night, late being here. Really appreciate all of you.
Thank you. And let's give some snaps to Adam for being our behind the scenes support person. Thank you, Adam. You told me you didn't know if you were going to be able to like bring the high level, and you did tonight. So thank you so much.